Are you ready to unlock your inner power and stand up for yourself and transform your life? Well, this is the episode for you. G'day, fabulous people. Welcome back to the More Life, Less Drama podcast, your go-to place for real talk, empowerment, and practical strategies to live your best life. I'm your host, Prue, and today we're diving headfirst into a topic that's near and dear to my heart, standing up for yourself. So settle in and get ready for some serious empowerment vibes. And if you're ready to take this work to the next level, be sure to download the free worksheet to help you take charge and thrive in your life. This is More Life, Less Drama. Let's get into it. Hello, welcome back to another episode of More Life, Less Drama. This is exciting. This is my second episode I'm streaming on YouTube and I've had to get dressed. I've had to do my hair. And actually it's a nice difference because when you're just in your home working, there's sometimes no opportunity to get dressed up. And you're like, why should I even bother getting dressed up? But I tell you what, getting dressed up, making yourself feel important and showing up, even if it's just for myself and for this video camera, it's actually really invigorating. It actually is one of those moments where you're like, I need to do this more often. I need to get out of my own way and get out of my shorts and t-shirt and get dressed up more often because, look, it makes me feel good and it makes me feel alive and, important, I suppose. So that's my trick for you guys. If you're at home a lot and maybe you work at home, maybe you're running a household with kids, get dressed. Get up, get dressed, do your hair, put a bit of makeup on if that makes you feel good. Because it really does make you feel a lot better about yourself. And so I'm all for having little strategies to make yourself feel better. And that's my hot tip for the day. Okay, so let's get into today's episode. Actually, before we get into it, I just need to say a huge thank you for everybody that sent me a message about last week's episode. I know that was an episode that was slightly different for this podcast, and I really appreciate all the great feedback. And I was super vulnerable in that episode, showed my tears, showed my emotions, and I'm really proud of myself for doing that. So I really love when women particularly send messages of support to say thank you for doing that. That was really great. And so from the bottom of my heart, I thank you for reaching out. Okay, so what are we going to learn today? Today's episode sort of flows on from last week because last week I was really talking about empowering women and helping them step into themselves and be seen and be heard. And this one is like a flow on from that because today I want to talk about, and it's not going to be so heavy, but today I want to talk about how to stand up for yourself. Because you might have listened to last week and was like, oh my God, yes, I am definitely a pushover, I'm being walked all over and I want things to change. You might be feeling a lot of frustration and resentment for certain circumstances in your life. And so this episode is going to help you unpack that a little bit more and just teach you and encourage you and give you a little push about how to step into yourself and how to actually advocate for yourself and speak up for yourself, stand up for yourself, however you want to say it. That's what I'm going to help you with today. As a quick rundown, this is what's going to happen today. We're going to learn why it's important to speak up for yourself. We're going to understand why you struggle to do that for yourself, and we're going to unpack a little bit about that. Then I'm going to speak about 9 tactics and ways that you can speak up for yourself. And then I'm also going to give you some scenarios about where this could be happening in your life, where you can actually implement this. And then I'm going to leave you with a great invitation to get the PDF. That's at the end of this episode. So you can then go away and keep learning about yourself so you can start to implement these strategies and these tactics in your own life. So that's at the end. Okay, so leaning into the uncomfortable learning curve of standing up for yourself holds so many benefits, and it is why I want you to be willing to try. Because yes, it is uncomfortable and it also has so many benefits on the other side. So the benefits are authentic self-expression. If you're standing up for yourself, you're actually cultivating authenticity. It's about expressing your true self and your opinions and your needs without all the filters that you feel are oppressing you. Because you might have done it a certain way for so long because someone had taught you that way, but then you've had an epiphany and you're like, oh, hold on, that doesn't feel right for me anymore and I want to do it differently. And so it will allow you to step into your authenticity. It's about building confidence. I have so many people that I talk to on a regular basis. My whole practice is really based around helping people gain more confidence in their own personal lives and for themselves. And so this is one of the byproducts of learning how to stand up for yourself. It actually builds. It's really hard sometimes to assert yourself because you lack confidence. So by taking some of these actions, you can step into the courage, and then confidence starts to flow and you start to be able to say things that you never said before, or tell people your opinion about something, or say no, whatever the case may be. But it builds confidence in yourself that you're showing up in the world as you and the person that you want to be. It also is going to help you set those healthy boundaries, because standing up for yourself and setting and maintaining healthy boundaries is a skill that is going to help you and protect your well-being. It's not about anybody else. These boundaries are for you, and it actually cultivates healthier relationships with yourself and also with the people that you love and that are surrounding you in your life. The other benefits are things like empowerment and personal growth. Who doesn't want that? I'm all for that, and constantly leaning into this one and learning a bit more about myself and empowering myself to stand up, speak up, think about what I actually want in my life. And it actually just pushes you, like being able to step into do this and speak up for yourself. It's about pushing you out of your comfort zone, because so many great dreams and goals die in comfort zones. And as you know, I love to see women achieve their goals, like put their mind to achieving something and really go after it. But if you're in your comfort zone, generally those dreams die, because goals aren't achieved in comfort zones, achieved outside of the comfort zone, in the growth zone. So it's really about embracing that discomfort, and the more that you embrace it, the easier it gets, okay? And then it's like a springboard for empowerment. That is another reason that you should learn these strategies and implement these tactics. It also can reduce resentment and frustration, because, my friends, that is something that I see a lot of older women particularly get to a stage where they're so annoyed with their life, they're so annoyed with their partner, they're frustrated, they're resentful, and I don't want that for you. So if you can feel that bubbling like in you already, I really want you to listen into this conversation and learn how you can speak up for yourself so you can abolish all those negative feelings of resentment and frustration. Because even though you might be projecting them out to somebody else, that you're resentful and frustrated at your partner or your boss or your friends, it actually is an internal thing. And really you're resentful and frustrated with yourself. And so learning to stand up for yourself and speak your mind and be authentic for who you are is going to help you manage and understand those feelings, and hopefully not feel them as much. It's okay to feel them, but not as much. If they're like taking over your life, it's a really great indicator that, yeah, you need to do some work on this. It also will enhance your communication skills. So communicating is vital in life. As you know, we have to communicate with other human beings. As much as some of us, especially the introverts, really wanted to stay hidden and not communicate, but by stepping into this and leaning into this discomfort of standing up for yourself, you're going to really be able to learn to articulate your thoughts and express your needs clearly, and therefore you can engage in powerful dialogue. Effective communication becomes a powerful tool for both your personal and professional settings, like all the settings. Then there's the idea that when you stand up for yourself, you are creating a life aligned to your values. And as you navigate this learning curve, you gain clarity about what your values are, because maybe you have no idea right now. Maybe you've done a little bit of work around it, but don't fully understand that yet. And once you start stepping in and speaking up for yourself, they'll start to come up and they'll start to be more noticeable to what you really value in your life. from last week's episode, you can see that I'm really passionate about helping women succeed financially, making sure that they're not oppressed, that they have a voice, that they're seen and heard and valued just as anybody else wants to be valued. And so I'm passionate about that. That is something that is in my values at a high level. And so this is what's going to be good for you too. Learning to align your values is going to be really helpful for the overall benefits of your whole life. And then another byproduct is that you might inspire and impact others. And I know that this might be really confronting for a lot of you, especially if you're always the person that stays quiet and is good, or hasn't ever seen yourself as somebody to be looked up to. I can absolutely guarantee that there are people in your life that you don't even know of that are watching you and that are inspired by you. This has been proven to me so many times, and once you start to speak up, you actually will just help one other person do the same thing. They're like, oh wow, Prue's really great at expressing her opinions and standing true to what she really believes in. Maybe I can do that. And it might be in the smallest of scenarios, but you might inspire somebody else to do that. And to me, that is just the ripple effect of why we do a lot of this personal growth. It doesn't just affect us, it just like ripples out to the whole of society and especially our families and our close connections. And imagine if we're just making changes to the world because we're making changes and we're choosing to step in and do this hard work for ourselves, and we're helping so many other people as well. So in essence, the idea about leaning into the discomfort of standing up for yourself and the transformation that happens within you really outweighs a lot of the negative consequences. It's about creating that life of authenticity and empowerment and meaningful connections with yourself and with others. It's about an investment in your well-being and the well-being of those around you too. Be the example of what's possible. That's what I just want to put into your subconscious right now. Let's understand why you haven't done this in the past and why it might be really difficult to do in the future. If you're hearing me going, I really want to stand up for myself, I know I'm being walked over in certain circumstances of my life. Maybe you've thought about it. Maybe you've dabbled and had a little go at standing up for yourself, but you got a little pushback, so you stopped. So let's talk about the reasons behind why this is difficult and why you haven't done it in the past. And first off, it's that looming fear of confrontation. Nobody likes to argue. Well, most people don't like to argue. Some people will love it, but definitely not me. The mere thought of having a heated exchange literally sends shivers down your spine. You'd rather walk away from a situation and not have your say because you're just too scared of having people's eyes on you, or people pushing back and you not knowing what to say in rebuttal. And believe me, the fear is real, and I can really feel it with you because it's something that I've struggled with a lot as well. So that's the first thing, that fear of confrontation. People don't like to be in the spotlight, and people definitely don't like to be in the spotlight when it's different to what the group says. That goes straight into number 2, which is the worry about what Aunt Betty and the whole neighbourhood are going to think of you if you speak your mind and are going against the grain of what everybody else around you is saying. So we've all been there, and it's that fear of judgment. And fear of judgment can be paralysing, because what if they label you as being too assertive or too blunt or cold or arrogant or all those other words that people love to say about you, and that makes you feel like you're doing something wrong. So that fear of judgment is a real thing. So we've had fear, just fear in general, of confrontation, and then the fear of judgment of what your community are going to say about you. That stops so many people. You've come to a point in your life and you're seeing things differently. You have shifted beliefs in a few things, and they don't align with who you were in the past, and it's totally okay. Yet navigating through that being that person to being this new version of yourself. And I say new version of yourself, it's not new. It's always there. It's just a different cycle of your life. And I watch a lot of people get pushed back from being different. And that is what stops a lot of people. It's okay not to be the same as you were in your 20s. That's what I want to tell you. That person that knew you when you were 21 and maybe has known you that whole time, and now at 45, you're starting to see things differently. It's okay. It's okay that they don't get it. And it's okay that you were stepping into this new place, because not everybody's in your life for the whole of your life. And that's totally okay too. So that big fear of losing people in your life is a huge reason why people don't step into this more. They just keep playing small. They keep being the person that they were for the last 30 years, even though it's not really aligned to them anymore. And they just keep showing up as that person because they're too scared and fearful of the judgment. There's the top 3 reasons. That fear of confrontation, the fear of judgment, and the fear of losing people in your life. Because maybe those people are important to you and you don't want to lose them. And that's why it's really important to understand what I'm going to teach you next. And that's these tactics that you can implement into your life that will help you navigate through this with a little bit more ease and a bit more knowing. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but if you have a little bit more knowing about stuff, it can actually help you be more aware and understanding of yourself and how others react. Okay. This is the part where I'm going to give you 9 ways to speak up for yourself. It's not about conflict and big, huge shows of defiance. That's not what I'm aiming for. These are simple, and I just want you to listen and see what's going to work for you and just leave the rest. It's totally okay. So the first one is setting boundaries. And I'm sure you've heard this so many times, but boundaries are your personal force field. Imagine the force field around you. That's what your boundary is. And I also need to say something about boundaries that many people don't tell you. And I want to start here, is that you set the boundary and it's up to you to enforce the boundary. People don't step over your boundary, you step over your boundary. So don't be confused. If you feel people and using the language like, oh, they're always pushing my boundaries, well, it's actually you allowing them to falter. And I say this so I can empower you, because it's up to you to enforce your own boundary. Nobody else is going to enforce your own boundary. Most of the time, people don't even know these boundaries exist. So it is up to you to enforce them. So boundaries, like I said, your secret weapon, they are your own force field, and it's not about creating a wall, but it's about creating that safe space inside that force field for yourself. And what that looks like is different for everybody. I can't just give you a boundary and go, just try this, because it is different for everybody. But an example that I can give you is around people being late. So maybe you've got a friend and you always meet for coffee on a Saturday morning, and you're like, okay, we'll get there at 9 o'clock, and you're still looking at your clock at 9:20, waiting for them to arrive. And being late is really annoying to you. It's something that really bugs you. Some people get really frustrated that people don't respect their time. And so the boundary in this circumstance, your boundary, might mean that you say to your friend, look, I'm happy to meet you at 9, and if you're not there at 9:10, I'm going to leave, because I really like when people respect my time, and I respect other people's times, and my boundary is that people show up on time. So that is the boundary that you enforce. And so when you're sitting there at that coffee shop and your friend hasn't arrived and it's 9:10, well, guess what? You have to enforce the boundary. You have to leave. That's you enforcing the boundary. If you just let it slide and she rocks up at 9:20 and she's apologetic and you are resentful and frustrated at her, well, it's because you didn't enforce your own boundary. So that's a great example. The second thing is I statements. It's about expressing yourself opposed to expressing blame to somebody else. It's like pointing the finger back to you. It's time to ditch the blame game that you've been playing for a long time and telling people that it's them that make you feel something, and actually using statements that start with I feel. So it's about expressing your thoughts and your feelings and not pushing the blame out to somebody else. So instead of saying, you make me feel frustrated when you're late, you could say, I'm feeling frustrated because I respect people's time and I don't believe that you're respecting my time. So that is the difference between pointing the finger at somebody else and blaming them and you taking ownership for them. The next thing is learning the art of saying no. And I know I think I've said this already on the podcast numerous times, but it's a skill and not a crime to say no. I just want to highlight this for you. Standing up for yourself can look like you just saying no to something. I want you to repeat after me. Saying no is not a crime. It's a skill. And anytime that you feel yourself wanting to say no and you can feel the yes coming out of you, I want you to say that sentence in your mind. Saying no is not a crime, it's a skill. So whether you're declining extra work or you're staying back at the office or being asked to stay back at the office, but you've got something really important that you want to go home to, or not, you don't have to have something to go home to say no. Or maybe you're declining at the P&C meeting to do the 100 cakes that you did for the last 5 years for the cake stall to raise money, and it's figuring out when you want to say no. Because if you're saying yes all the time and you really want to say no, that can lead to resentment and frustration, and also taking you away from the things that you really want to do in your life. So just take a moment right now and think of something that you have said yes to recently, but instantly regretted. Maybe it was a coffee date with a friend, maybe it was dinner, maybe it was hosting a birthday party, maybe it was buying something that you felt pressured into. Whatever it is, just take a moment now and just understand what you're saying yes to when you really want to say no. The next tactic is knowing your content. There is a quote from Einstein that says, if you can't say something simply, you don't understand it well enough. And this is the essence of this strategy. If you feel passionate about something and you want to see a change for yourself and you want to stand up and advocate for yourself or your family or even the world, then I want you to educate yourself on the topic so you can explain it simply. Less words is more impact. Rambling can confuse the listener, so spend time learning. This is why it's so essential to do your own thought work and reflection for yourself in your own private time, because if you can't articulate how you feel and what your boundary is, then how do you expect anybody else to understand? So less is more. Oh, and I just have to say, that was really hard for me to not say so many words. This is a skill that I am learning. It is not a skill that I have perfected yet, but I am really determined to learn this skill, because as somebody that has just learned to speak and speak up, it is a skill that I feel like I've got to over justify, so I use lots of words. But I am learning and I know I'm going to get better, and I know you can too. Okay, the next one is active listening. So this is a tactic, my friends, that we can all use when we're learning how to stand up for ourselves. Because speaking up isn't always just about talking. It's also about listening. And listening is a skill that transforms conversations and can really lead to meaningful exchanges. As a coach, my number one job is to listen. I listen a lot. Listening is like this dance where both people in the conversation get to lead. It's not just about you being talked at or you talking to somebody. It's about listening and understanding what is really going on, so you can then ask great questions and people can feel heard and seen and valued just from you listening. It's such a great skill to learn. Practice listening. Practice listening to people and their words and how they feel and express themselves. Listen not to respond, but just listen to understand. That's a really great way of putting it. The next tactic is choosing your battles. It's about strategy over agonizing over circumstances. Standing up doesn't mean diving headfirst into battle every single time. No, that's the opposite of what I mean. It's about choosing when you want to assert yourself and stand up for yourself, and it's understanding that delicate balance of not always being the doormat, which is where you might be feeling, or the opposite end of the scale, like coming out guns blazing. It's about understanding that middle ground and understanding when to stand up for yourself and when not to. Like when it's appropriate, when it's not to, when it's going to support you and when it's not going to support you. So it's just about navigating through that. It's about being smart and understanding who you are, what your values are, and what moments you are not willing to compromise on. That's the essence of that tactic. Tactic number 7 is being firm, not aggressive. And again, it's finding that sweet spot between those two places. And it's about striking the right balance between being a pushover and the steamroller. So it's very similar to point 7. Because when we are standing up for ourselves, I just don't want you to think about yourself. I don't want you to go out as a steamroller and leave a huge trail of destruction and damaged egos, because that could be more hurtful. I want you to navigate through this and find that sweet spot that's going to support you in standing up for yourself. Okay? And number 8 is just about practice. Learning the skill and showing up and practicing it. That's something that you can do after this podcast episode. You can download that PDF, like I said, and start using those reflective questions to understand where you want to stand up for yourself and in what circumstances and what really you would like to see changing. And then I've got one last one, which is number 9, and this actually is a really silent powerhouse, and that's body language. Really important to sync up what you say with what you show in your body language, because your body will speak your mind unconsciously. So you might be confidently saying yes to something and nodding your head possibly. If someone's like, would you like to come out to coffee today? And you're like, yes. And you're nodding your head without even knowing it. That's your body language not syncing up to what your mind really wants. I think it's only something like 7% of the message is the words. So think of all that other percentage point, that's you and your body language. Really important to sync up the two. This is also a great one for you learning about yourself too. So if you're in a real state of awareness about yourself, when you're going through life, you can see how your body language isn't syncing up. You can be like, oh, I need to work on that. And so it's just the awareness for yourself as well. They were 9 tactics that I've just walked through to help you understand how you can start showing up for yourself or speaking up for yourself, advocating for yourself, whatever language that you want to use in your life. But now let's just go through some scenarios where you can start doing this, because I want to take it down from being very abstract to very practical, because I'm all about practical on this podcast. The first scenario could be in the office. Maybe you work a job and you're in the office surrounded by other people. It doesn't have to be an office, it can be any work environment. But office politics, no matter where you are, can be really sneaky. They can really be difficult to navigate because there's lots of different personalities in the room and understandings of things. Using the tactics we talked about, it can help you figure out where you can be assertive and where it's going to help and maybe where it's going to hinder. Maybe it's about bringing up hard conversations. Maybe it's talking about the person or your work colleague that is not pulling their weight. It's the conversation about the dishes in the sink and you getting left with them all the time. I know that was one when I was working in an office. That was a real point of contention for a lot of people in the office. It's about listening more to others and creating that open dialogue. The office and your work environment is a big part of this. This is a place where you can start asserting yourself a lot more and start using these tactics to, make it better, because we all want to feel great where we work. Then there's school meetings and conferences. Think of parent-teacher interviews or P&C meetings, all that type of stuff. Maybe you want to advocate for your child, and maybe this is time where you want to speak up because you want your child to have the best education, but you have that fear of judgment from all the other parents that are in your room, like all your peers. And so this is the place where you can start practicing being the person that you want to be, being the advocate for your child by learning how to speak up for yourself, but also for your kids, right? This is a big one. It's the family gatherings, okay? How do you find this diplomacy at the dinner table amongst all the people that are in your family and have all different personalities and opinions, and occasionally there's an awkward silence, or maybe Uncle John says something that's inappropriate. We've all been there. We've all been at those gatherings that you want to say something, or you want to stand up for somebody else or something else, but you're too afraid of the confrontation or too afraid of the judgment to actually do it. This is like a really delicate art, but this is a really important piece as well, because I know many people want you to stay the same. Like, your family have known you since birth, most probably. And if you're starting to, speak differently and stand up for yourself a lot more, maybe someone's always picked on you and made a joke of something. Maybe it's your weight, your hair colour, your thin hair. Maybe it's time to say, actually, I really don't appreciate you doing that. It makes me feel insecure when you speak about me in that way, and I would appreciate it if you stopped. So it's really important to lean on those tactics that were talked about earlier and start implementing them into these family gatherings, because this is a big piece of you. I know it is. And a lot of people feel stuck when it comes to being different around their family. And I get you. I really do. So time to learn how to speak up and advocate for yourself. And it's going to be challenging. It really is. And I also know it's going to be okay. Then there's online interactions as well. We've got lots of online keyboard warriors at the moment that are really happy to throw out some judgment and criticism. And it's okay for you to stand up for yourself online as well. What that looks like, lean on all of the above and figure out what that looks like for you. And doing this will teach your kids and teach their kids how to do this as well, because it's really important to teach people, especially our children, how to do this from an early age, because I don't want my kids to have to wait till they're in their 40s to learn how to speak up for themselves. I want them to do it now. And yes, it forever changes, because we are forever changing, and that's okay. But at least if they learn how to use their voice now, it's going to be so much easier for them when they get older. There's one area that I haven't discussed yet, and that is your personal relationships. It's a big one, because let's face it, the drama isn't confined to the school gates or the office. It can really sneak right into your own homes. And here are some scenarios where standing up for yourself is crucial, even in the most intimate of spaces. So let's have a think about your love story, the person that you've chosen to spend your life with, and navigating that relationship reality. Because sometimes it's not always the fantasy that Disney has told us it is, because love stories are a mix of joy and compromise and, yes, occasional agreements. There's a guy called John Gottman. He is a relationship expert, and he can tell if a relationship will survive or fail by looking at how the couple navigates conflict. So it's not in those moments of love that he looks at, it's actually how they show up for each other and themselves in that time of conflict. And that is the determining factor of if that relationship will survive or not. So in these moments, it's really important to stand up for yourself, because it is like that delicate dance. The thing that you didn't speak up about 20 years ago, maybe that has just festered a lot of resentment and frustration. And then 20 years later, your partner had no idea that it was causing you so much internal grief and has continued acting that particular way. And then 20 years later, it blows up. So it's about creating those small incremental changes along the way so it doesn't get to that point in time. So it's really important to stand up for yourself as soon as it's happening. Don't let these things pass, and learning the art of communication is a really great skill for this particular circumstance. It's also really important to set these healthy boundaries for yourself and your relationship. Even in those really cozy, tight-knit relationships that you have, boundaries matter. There's never a time that boundaries don't matter. It's all about exploring and navigating through what those boundaries are for you. And maybe it's just things like deciding what responsibilities are going to be shared and what responsibilities are yours alone. Maybe it's about what TV show to binge watch on Netflix on a Friday night. Maybe it's about choosing the movie together. Just simple things like that. If you're not setting these boundaries, conflict is more likely to arise. It's all about speaking up. When you feel the need to speak up, you need to learn to speak up without that fear and without that judgment and without being scared of the confrontation. Because love definitely thrives when both partners are feeling heard and respected. And then there's how to navigate disagreements. You have to actually think about this and how you want to be when a disagreement happens. Disagreements are a conversation, not a battle. It's not going in and thinking that you have to win, because that's a lot of the time is relationships undoing, is that someone has to be right. No, it's just a conversation. Disagreements, as we all know, are inevitable in all relationships, but they don't have to be that battlefield. And if you're speaking up for yourself, it will help dampen the potential drama bombs. And instead you can turn conflict into opportunities and a form of growth for your relationship rather than maybe it coming to an end. It's about expressing your perspective and what your needs are without undermining them and extinguishing that flame of love that you have for that person, because it's worth it. If you want this relationship to work, these difficult conversations are really important to have. So as you can see, there's lots of circumstances in your life where you can learn and start to speak up for yourself. And I'm sure there's countless others that I haven't mentioned, but it was just to highlight some of these scenarios for you so you can start leaning in and practicing the art of speaking up for yourself. So go back and maybe listen to this episode again to gain a better understanding of those tactics, and definitely go and download the PDF that will help you practice this even more in your own time, because really that's the most important thing that you can do here, is to give yourself your own time to learn about what you want and what you don't want, what you're passionate about, what your values are, and to start putting that stake in the ground. Because I want you to live the life that you want to live. And that means being different sometimes. That means pushing through these uncomfortable scenarios that happen in life, but it's all going to be worth it. Remember all the points that I talked about earlier? Like, it's going to give you authenticity of yourself. It's going to give you some confidence. It's going to align your life with the life that you actually want, opposed to the life that is being offered to you right now. So go out, practice these tactics, and I would love to hear from you. And give me a huge shout out when you've done some of this work. Let me know how you're standing up for yourself, and let me know what impact it's having on you and your family, maybe your children, maybe your community, maybe the world. Let me know, because our small contribution might seem small, but it's really significant in the long run. Doing the work on ourselves is hard and sometimes feels insignificant, but it really creates a huge impact. So go out, be that person that is going to advocate for themselves and start standing up for themselves, and let me know how you go. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, my friends, download the PDF and get to work behind the scenes doing this work, and I will see you in the next episode. Thanks for joining me. Bye.